Alright, in this video, this is the final in a series of videos about creating a waffle model. And in this video, we're going to talk about how to diagram the process, or at least indicate clearly how some of these parts fit together in a diagrammatic way. So in order to do that, we want to be able to represent what is physically being made by the whole laser cut and assembly process. We want to actually draw what that final product looks like, which is slightly different geometry than what we've been working with so far, because what we've been working with so far, the end goal has been to create this two-dimensional geometry, curves that can be used or sent to the laser cutter to be cut out. And that's different than modeling actual material thicknesses and things like that. So there's a couple steps to modeling this that I want to go over. One is just taking what we came up with before and converting it into that into those objects that have material thickness. And that's going to be relatively straightforward for this part, because I can just use my selection filter to select only surfaces, and going back to this earlier geometry that I created, I can select just those surfaces. Let's see here. Try here. Okay, so now I have just these surfaces in one direction, and then I'm going to use the extrude surface command, and it looks like a mess, but I'm going to just type in 1/32, which is half of the thickness of our material in this case, which is a 1/16 of an inch. So when I do that, I had the both sides option turned on, and I had the solid option turned on. And so once I've done that, the result is this series of polysurfaces, which I need to turn on my selection filter for that, so that I can select those. And you'll see here I have individual closed polysurfaces modeling these individual ribs. So then the next step would just be to do the same thing in the perpendicular direction. See if I can select these quickly. Alright, and then I just want to extrude surface 1/32 of an inch. Okay, so now I have those modeled, but it isn't quite going to communicate things just yet, because in reality I'm going to be assembling these in a way that is going to be clear upon inspection, and there's not going to be things like this where there's some kind of weird overlap or intersection that in this case, can only happen in the virtual world. So what I want to do is add some realism to this, and also communicate how they interconnect a little bit more. So what I'll do first is actually adjust them slightly in terms of height. So there's two groups that I have. I have the one group that's on the bottom and the other group that's on the top. So I'm going to take the group that's on the top, which is the horizontal members in this case. I'm going to take those and move them up in the z-axis, so that I can kind of give a sense of how these fit together, just by offsetting or adjusting the height a little bit. So I'll just go to the top view to select these, so that's a little bit easier. And I think it's this way for this. Alright, so there's my horizontal surfaces, or polysurfaces. So I'm just going to move these up just a little bit, so that it's clear that they're not quite at the same level. Maybe that was a little bit much. But yeah, so just a tad. Alright, so now that I've done that, what I want to do is indicate something about the intersection, and this is really just a visual cue that there's something happening there, that these are coming together in some way. So what I want to do is just select my poly surfaces, and I want to select all of them, just the poly surfaces, 48 poly surfaces. Now I just have those selected, and I'm going to run the intersect command, which is what we did before with surfaces. In this case, though, now I'm intersecting volumes or solids, and that's going to give more involved intersections that are going to kind of clearly reflect how these all come together. So if I zoom in now after creating those intersections and highlight one of them, except I need to turn on my curve filter here, now I can see that that intersection is kind of reflective of, it's not exactly how the geometry comes together, but it does provide a line around the edge that shows where that intersection or where those ribs come together. And it suggests that they're fitting together in some fashion. We can't quite see it. Alright, so those are the main steps for that, and then to export this, then I would select everything. I would select all the poly surfaces and the curves like I have now, and I would set this up for some kind of a make 2D thing to export. So if I were doing it like so, okay, I can do my make 2D here, current view, just visible lines. Alright. It has to process a lot of geometry here, so it takes a little bit. So the next step after this is going to be to identify just a few particular ribs from these assembly, or this assembly here, to separate out and show a little more detail for. So here's my make 2D. Now that that's done, I can zoom out, and from the top view I can see all of this geometry that it has generated, and this I can export directly to Illustrator and use for my diagramming. So that's an important step. And then the next bit that I was just talking about here now is I want to separate out some of these ribs so that I can clearly indicate how they come together. So one thing I noticed right away when I select one of these is that I do not have the actual notches modeled in this case. And so for the ones that I separate, I actually am going to need to model those notches. And I've done that over here, so rather than going back and placing those notches here in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a way to identify which rib this is, if this is the one that I want to separate. So I'm just going to go to my top view for this, and I'll just see what I can do here in terms of selection. So just do this. Since these are lined up, I should be able to, well, okay, it's not going to work in this case because everything's grouped. But if I ungroup this, I'll try this again. I'm selecting an arbitrary one in this case, but you'll want to keep track pretty closely which is which. Alright, so that, now I've selected this particular rib here. This is the one that I want. I want to separate this one out, and so what I'll do is I'll select all of that geometry. Again, I gotta ungroup here, ungroup, and just select this geometry. I actually don't want these middle lines anymore. I don't need them for this, so I'll just copy this and I'll separate this out. And now I'm going to want to create a closed curve with these notches. cut out. So the easiest way to do that is simply going to be to trim away the parts that I don't want, like so. And I will also need to cut away the actual rib edges where the notches are. But actually I needed to select all of this geometry for that to work. So I'll run the trim command again with everything selected, and now I should be able to go in here and cut those out pretty easily. Now there's probably another way I could have done this with the split command. May have been a little bit faster, but I'll just keep going with this for now, because the result of this should be a closed curve that I can extrude. And that's going to be the goal for these ribs, is to have, again, solid extruded geometry that I can show as a model of what's actually going on in 3D. So almost done. Alright, couple more. Alright, so once I've done that, it says I've got 48 open curves. I'm just going to hit join, and it says that they're all joined into one closed curve. And now I can extrude this curve. I'll say both sides again. I'll say solid, and then I'll enter my extrusion distance, which is 1/32, and the result then is my modeled rib with the notches. So what I would do then is I would go through that same process for a few of these in this direction, and then I'd do the same thing in this direction, except the notches are going to be at the top. And then I can, now that I have this geometry, I can take this back over here. I'll just copy it and paste it and move this over here and drop it down to where I can see where it's supposed to be, and I'll just line that up and plop it on top of my existing geometry here, right to there, and then I will pull it up here, and now I could go in, and if I wanted to actually do a make 2D where I'm actually including this geometry separated out. And if I wanted to be consistent, I would go through and I would set up a named view so that I get a consistent view each time, and that way I can play with these, get them into the right position that I want them to be in for my graphics, and then do another make 2D and select and export that geometry. So hopefully that helps you with the process of creating this three-dimensional geometry for diagrammatic purposes, and thanks for watching.